Hello, my name is Eric, and I'm going to be your chairperson in Gothenburg. So, first of all, a very warm welcome to the DROI committee, or as it's called, the Committee on Human Rights. Now, firstly, the issue we've been asked to deal with is transgender Europe, with transgender and gender diverse people being subjected to gender reassignment surgeries to legally change their genders. 79% of transgenders in the EU have experienced violence, abuse or discrimination. How can the EU contribute to end these human rights violations and support transgender people? Now, why is this relevant? It's relevant because 300 trans people were killed in monitoring countries in 2016, according to Transgender Europe, and 116 transgenders were killed in Europe between 2008 and 2016. And a 2015 survey of 27,715 transgender people in the United States indicated that 40% of respondents had attempted suicide at least once. So not only are they being persecuted and actually hunted down, but they're also thinking about killing themselves. And as of now, no European states allow transgender people to have a third gender in their official documents, such as identity cards, passports or birth certificates. And in Europe, only Ireland, Malta, Norway and Denmark allow transgender people to self-determine gender without medical treatment or psychiatric testimony. And so social stigma comes from the society creating this image of people being either a man or a woman, and this could lead to and will lead to discrimination of transgender people and a feeling of inferiority compared to the rest of the society. Now, I've gone through a couple of words now, and there are some words I would like you to know by the time we get to Gothenburg. And the first one is sex. Now, I'm not talking about sex as in, well, sex. I'm talking about it from a more social point of view. And sex in this context is about the biological difference between people in hormones, genitalia and chromosomes. So the biological difference. While gender, those two are often confused, gender is the roles and expectations assigned to a person of a certain sex by the society. And transgender is an umbrella term for all those who do not identify with the gender or sex assigned at birth. And as you probably gathered by now, we will be dealing with the transgender issue. Then you have non-binary gender, which means not feeling at home with either the male or the female categories. And you also have gender diversity, which is a variation of genders, usually including male, female and other categories such as intersex and transgender. Then you also have gender dysphoria, and trans people often experience this kind of anxiety or stress caused by a mismatch between your gender identity and your body. And transitioning is what we call it when you are in the process of matching body and gender expression with your gender identity. For example, through sex reassignment surgery, SRS, or hormone replacement therapy, that's a hard one, HRT. And then, what is sex reassignment surgery? Well, SRS is a surgery in which one's genitals are changed to better fit one's gender identity, such as a vagina being turned into a penis. And then the other form of treatment I talked about was hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, or it's also called gender affirming hormone therapy, which is a medical treatment that allows a trans person to acquire secondary sex characteristics, for example being able to grow a beard, that are more aligned with one's gender identity. And lastly, intersex means when a baby is neither clearly male nor female at birth. Then who can do something about this? Well, the first one that comes to mind when we're talking about human rights is, of course, the United Nations. Now, the United Nations, I'm sure you've heard of it before, I'm sure you know quite a lot of it, so I won't be going through that, you can look it up yourself, but it is divided into several sub-organizations and committees and councils, such as the UN Human Rights Council, UNHRC, and the Security Council, the Security Council being the only one who can make the other countries, if you gather that, it can make other countries do what they want, basically. And this is the largest international organization of its kind. Then you have the Council of Europe, the COE, which consists of 47 European states, including all of those of the European Union, and works for human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Then you have the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, which rules on human rights issues, and they rule based on the European Convention on Human Rights, which was passed by the Council of Europe, so it's legally binding for all of those 47 states. Then you have non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, such as Amnesty International, that work to secure human rights and inform the public about human rights violations, especially those committed by states. Then you have Transgender Europe, which was established on the first European Transgender Council meeting in Vienna in 2006, and they work as trans advocates to raise awareness and conduct research on transgender issues. And then lastly, the thing I will be going through now is the measures in place, so what has been done. And in 2016, the United Nations Human Rights Council, UNHRC, as I talked about before, passed a resolution creating an independent UN expert for the protection against violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. That was directly quoted from their website. And this is a major achievement because the UN is usually divided on transgender issues. And the UN also has a campaign promoting LGBT plus rights called Free and Equal. And Germany became the first country in Europe to allow people and parents to leave their child's sex identifier, intersex children, the sex identifiers as others. And the German Constitutional Court has of October 10th this year ruled that it is unconstitutional to have only 2 sex identifiers on official papers, telling the government to either waive the need to identify sex on said papers or to include a third option. And in 2015, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe passed a resolution urging its members to improve transgender rights in national legislation. The resolution made recommendations on matters such as legal gender recognition, trans-specific hate crime laws, police training, and the inclusion of a third gender option in official documents. The UN Human Rights Council published a report with similar findings and recommendations, albeit from a global perspective. And the European Union, which I'm very sure you've heard of, Agency for Fundamental Rights, FRA, has conducted research since 2008 on LGBT plus people's situation in the EU, and a 2013 survey revealed that many LGBT plus people avoid public places because of fear, discrimination, or even violence. In countries such as Norway, Denmark, and Malta renewed their trans legislation. Malta also adopted a law that allowed for a quick, transparent, and accessible gender recognition procedure that allows trans people to determine the legal gender themselves. And the Maltese bill also allowed parents of intersex children to leave the birth certificate blank of any gender identifier until the child can make an informed decision later in childhood. In 23 European countries, sterilization, meaning if you were biologically a woman, you would have to have your ovaries taken out, and if you were a man, you would have to have your testes removed in order for a person to be legally able to change their gender. Other requirements may be hormonal replacement therapy, sex reassignment surgery, or having to be diagnosed with a psychiatric diagnosis or not being married. And as of 2015, the FRA reported that only 8 EU countries specifically outlaw incitement to hate speech, violence and discrimination based on gender identity. And in Lithuania, for example, hate speech needs to be with intent in order to be a crime. And courts then simply ask people if the hate speech was intentional, and if they reply no, then the context is disregarded. In the Employment Equality Directive, which is a directive made by the EU has explicitly prohibited discrimination in the workplace based on gender identity. And the World Health Organization (WHO) is currently debating on a new version of the International Classification of Diseases (ICD). In previous and the current versions, transsexualism is classified as a gender identity disorder. So far, some argue that the ICD should not include transgender identity whatsoever, while others propose to move it to the chapter on sexual health rather than with the gender identity disorders. So that was that. I hope you've gotten some hang of our topic. I know it was very quickly gone through. I will be posting this on the blog, and yeah, I'm really excited to see all of you in Gothenburg. Obviously we've been working for quite some time. I will be working until January as well, to make sure that we will all have a very good experience in Gothenburg. And I also forgot to say, I said my name was Eric, I'm 18 years old, and I'm from Norway. So hej då, and talk to you later.